dimension, your culture is okay, your culture is not okay. And as you muse back about all those different cultures that you may have touched on, may have popped into your mind, as you looked at yourself through the lens of Denton Roberts, you maybe would put some of those cultures in perhaps some of those quadrants which are defined here. And I want to give you some examples of my own and invite you to be thinking about, and then I'll put you back in other rooms. And I'm going to put out a handout as I do it. So I'll be sharing the screen again. Everybody see that okay? Can you give me a verbal or a non-verbal? Yeah, thank you, Anand. Got a thumbs up from you? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so I want to start off in the corner of my culture is okay and your culture is not okay. And an experience I had of that was I was in a nail bar. Everybody know what a nail bar is? Where you have your nails done. This is cultural, you know. Only women go to nail bars to have your nails done. In Canada, at the border on Niagara. And there was a young woman doing nails there from the United States. And she said to me, "Where'd you come from?" And I said, "England." "Oh, you mean Boston?" "No, I mean England." "Oh, where's that?" "What do you mean?" "Oh, you mean sort of somewhere in Massachusetts?" "No, England." So we went through the whole bit of England is in Europe and da-da-da-da. And she then said to me with a look of great compassion, she said, "Gee, are you not sad that you weren't born American?" And at that moment, I moved into my culture is okay and yours is not. I had a flash of such rage. And if we weren't sitting across a nail bar desk, I don't know what I might have said or done. And luckily, there were two older Canadian women working there who overheard it, who said, "You know, come on, honey, you know, there are people who live in other places." Anyway, this is, the background of it is by the by, but it was a real moment where I really experienced my culture is okay and your culture is not okay, which can go from dismissiveness to huge antagonism. It's a xenophobic place. It's an ethnocentric place. And as a British person, I am really aware that my culture in Britain, we don't say British culture is okay and everywhere else is not. What we tend to express is our culture is a little bit superior to everybody else's. That's a very British common position on culture. I can see some of you have been roaring with laughter at these different examples, which indicates to me you've met them, you've come across them, that you've had meetings with people holding these positions. What that experience gave me in the nail bar in Canada is a real sense of how people move to huge aggression and attack when defending their culture and being superior about their culture against another one. So for a moment, I really understood that. And it's a useful place to know what that feels like when I meet somebody else who might be in that place. If we move to the diagonal opposite, then this is the xenophilic. My culture is not okay and your culture is. This is the position of, in some way, looking down on one of my own cultures and looking up to another one of somebody else's culture. And this is a position that some people find themselves in frequently, and some people therefore finding themselves in it. I think this is how Coca-Cola has perhaps colonized the world, by looking up to, by respecting, by admiring another culture as being superior to my own. And this is a problem that I run into when I'm in India, that there is such a looking up to Western culture, British culture, education culture. I live and work in Oxford, and there's almost immediately a looking up to this representation that I bring just by my existence because I'm from Oxford. And that this idea that somehow there is something superior, something to be had from this culture. And one of the responses that I notice that then happens when I'm working in India educationally is people keep very quiet. People don't want to speak out or say things because there is something about this looking up to this culture that I represent. In my own experience of this, it's ironic because I am not an Oxford University graduate. And when I moved to Oxford, living in this city, there is very clearly two classes of people in Oxford. There are people at the university and people who are not at the university. And I noticed myself beginning to get into a little bit of, well, I'm not from the university. My culture's not okay. It's only okay in Oxford if you went to the university. So there is a real experience of that, almost shame, that somehow I can live and work in, and I've worked at the university, but I'm actually not of that culture. I didn't go there. And then we have down in the bottom left corner this idea of really no culture is okay, a despising of all cultures. And in this position, there is really a despising of humanity. And I think we can see there being moments of this coming up in the global press where different people seem to be coming from this very misanthropic viewpoint. It's not one I've ever experienced myself, where there is a complete distrust of all cultures. I see it has mankind written on the handout rather than humanity. And I suspect that's how it is, in a way, that it's a sense of a reification of human beings. When we come up into the my culture's okay and your culture's okay, then there's a very interesting set of positions here. I think there are three going more so across this quadrant. And this is the inclusive place, it's the ideal place, and in some ways it probably is a place that we would all aspire to, but quite what we mean by it is something interesting to think about. So I want to produce you something else before asking you to go back into rooms to talk about this. Is that okay with you? Yeah, some nods, great. So I stop sharing that one and I come up with one which shows three different positions in the my culture's okay and your culture's okay corner. No, I've got the wrong one. Excuse me. Let's click on this again. Okay, So you should have something called, that's got 2 boxes at the top, ethnocentrism and ethno-relativism. Is that what you can see? Can you nod or? Yeah, okay. So I want to look at the ethno-relative place, because I think this has 3 different positions in that my culture's okay, your culture's okay quadrant. The first position being acceptance, that I accept our cultures are different. And that doesn't mean that we agree. And that I do that not just on an intellectual level, but on an emotional, so an affective and a body level as well. So this is the first position in the my culture's okay, your culture's okay. The second position, which is moving more so, is adapting to difference, where there is empathy. There is empathy for another's culture and a shift of my frame of reference, that I might be willing to experiment with in some way some of the aspects of your culture, but I'm adapting, I'm doing this knowingly, I'm not assimilating, I'm not going blind, or what in TA we would call over-adaptation. So I'm doing this through choice, from a place of empathy. And then going to this notion of integration, which is a third position, where I internalize that there are many different frames of reference. I really get that we all here have different frames of reference, and that I could look at a situation and use different frames, different perspectives, different cultural ideas to look at one situation. I wouldn't prefer one cultural frame over another. If I was working in an organization, there might be different cultural frames of reference at different levels of the organization, and that I could bring all of those to bear, that I would have enough insight into those. And to accept that there's not an identity primarily based on any one culture. And if we take that Denton Roberts idea that we are all the product of many cultures in our own individual lives, then this place of integration must be a place that we know for ourselves, that there are these many layers that we've already somehow found a way to be with. But when looking at another culture that's not my own, then can I get to that place of integrating the difference or the differences? So this is a question that I want to pose to you in this corner of we're okay, my culture's okay, your culture is okay, we're okay, they're okay, you're okay. Can we move into any of these 3 positions? Or do we get stuck into one of the other quadrants? So, Alex, I'd like to ask you if you'd be willing to put people back into rooms to chew over these ideas and to come back and to report back in 11 minutes. Yeah, 11 minutes in your rooms, perhaps in a different mix from before, and to report back what you have gained from these discussions and these ideas. So we'll come back in what's going to be 11 minutes from now, so at 48 after the hour, and here, what does this begin to add up to for you? So can I ask you, Alex, to put people into rooms again?
Yeah, of
Thanks,
course.
Alex.
And busy working on it.
Great.
Okay, I'll see you all shortly.